The morning light slips through the kitchen blinds as Maria pours her coffee and scrolls her phone like so many of us do, checking messages, the weather, the bank app. Her thumb pauses. A balance. Not enormous, she tells herself, but bigger than she remembered. She sighs, sets the phone down, and the room fills with that familiar, quiet weight. The sense that her finances are a puzzle where a few pieces have gone missing. She dresses for work, kisses her partner goodbye, and carries that low, nagging worry with her like a jacket she can't quite shrug off. Wasn't I doing fine? She asks aloud to the empty kitchen. The question hangs there, practical and honest. Last payday felt good. A celebratory dinner, a new pair of shoes, a weekend trip with friends. But 2 weeks later, an unexpected dentist bill. Next week, a notification that her credit card balance had crept up while she slept. The math is simple, and the realization is sharp. It wasn't one big mistake. It was many small, unconscious choices. Little approvals at checkout, subscriptions that quietly renew, the comfort purchases meant to lift a long day. Each one defensible. Together they create a quiet, persistent drain. We meet Maria at her call to adventure, frustrated, tired, ready to change. Her eyes sharpen when she opens the credit card statement, tracing the pattern like a detective. She remembers promises she made to herself. To save, to stop living paycheck to paycheck, to feel secure. Now those promises look like a map with a missing legend. In a soft, steady voice, she vows to understand what's happening to her money, not out of shame, but out of a desire for dignity and freedom. You might recognize her, the mid-40s professional who earns well but still feels the month slip away, the person who thinks, I'll start next month for the third November in a row. This is the hidden enemy, the habit of spending beyond conscious awareness, fueled by ease and emotion, disguised as normal life. It steals certainty and leaves anxiety in its place. I'll be the mentor who walks beside Maria and you through this journey. In the next segment, we'll trace the invisible leaks in her cash flow, label the habits that hide behind convenience, and discover the first practical steps she took to reclaim control. If this strikes a chord, tap like quietly. Tell me your biggest financial pain in the comments, and stay with us. Because the path from surviving month to building true prosperity is closer than it looks. The kitchen light hummed low as Maria sat hunched over a scatter of receipts, her laptop screen casting a pale glow across a countertop strewn with unopened envelopes. The month had begun with a small celebration. Payday, the relief of watching numbers climb back into the black. She had told herself she was doing fine. Her voice, tired but stubborn, answered a voicemail from the bank. Your minimum payment is due. That sound felt like a verdict. The credit card app flashed at the same time, balances inching up, interest quietly conspiring. She touched the phone as if it might offer a different story. I watch people like Maria all the time. Hardworking, responsible, convinced they're keeping pace until the pattern reveals itself. Here's what she didn't see in the bright moments. The enemy wasn't a single reckless purchase. It was 1,000 small permissions given on autopilot. Morning coffee bought across the street became a ritual. 2 streaming services, a gym membership she rarely used, dinner out, just this once, that turned into 3 nights a month. An online sale convinced her she deserved the upgrade. Each decision felt insignificant alone, but together they were a slow siphon beneath her feet. Between sips of cold coffee, Maria began to trace the months on her bank statements like a detective. The arithmetic was simple but brutal. Recurring charges, convenience fees, late penalties, and interest, compounded, they swallowed the cushion she thought she had. She muttered aloud. I didn't realize it added up. There was shame, yes, but also a flicker of something else, clarity. For the first time she could see the leak, not as moral failure, but as a predictable system exploiting habit and distraction. She called her sister and said, quietly, I think I need a plan. Her sister's voice was steady. Start by looking. Tell me what you find. That night Maria made a small, courageous choice. She opened a fresh spreadsheet and labeled columns she'd never used. Needs, wants, recurring, one-offs. The act of naming felt like taking a first step across a threshold. If this scene sounds familiar, you're not alone. In the next part, I'll walk Maria, and you, through the exact steps she used to stop the bleeding and build real financial awareness. If this hits home, tap like, Share your biggest money pain below, and stay with me to learn the roadmap she followed. The kitchen light is soft, a mug gone cold beside a stack of envelopes. Maria sits at the table, credit card notice folded open like an accusation. She tells herself, out loud, I'm doing fine, but the numbers on the page and the little notification pings on her phone say something else. A memory surfaces, the impulse buys after a stressful day, the monthly subscriptions she barely uses, the dinners out that felt like deserved treats, and then became automatic. It wasn't one big mistake, it was dozens of tiny permissions she never tracked. I never thought small things would add up like this, she whispers, and the room answers with quiet. Her mentor's voice, calm, unhurried, comes back to her like a gentle tide. Careful isn't the same as aware, he had said. He points not at blame, but at a map. Income, fixed costs, flexible spending, and those invisible leaks that live in convenience and habit. He walks her through an ordinary day, narrating the micro-decisions. The $6 latte, the streaming trial that renews, the online sale that felt urgent. Each choice is small, but together they tilt the month toward scarcity. Maria listens, stomach nodding and loosening in turns, as if each revelation is opening windows in a stuffy room. Emotion rises and settles, shame, then curiosity, then a cautious hope. She begins to catalog, a notebook, a list, the kind of non-judgmental inventory that turns fog into structure. The mentor asks a question that lands like a key. What does prosperity mean to you beyond numbers? Maria sees it now, not deprivation, but clarity, options, freedom to choose. The plan isn't about cutting joy, it's about choosing joy intentionally. He shows her a simple practice. For 3 weeks, track every small outflow, name it, and assign a purpose. The act of naming makes the leaks visible. The act of choosing redirects the flow. Maria folds the notice back into the envelope differently this time. Not hidden, but scheduled to be addressed. There's tension, yes, but also the first ember of control. If this resonates with you, tap like and tell me your biggest financial pain in the comments. Subscribe to follow Maria as she learns the first concrete step to stop those leaks and reclaim momentum. Next, we walk through that very first step. How to map your cash flow so nothing slips by unseen. That night the kitchen light threw a small halo over the table where Maria sat, a scatter of receipts and a half-empty mug of coffee between her hands. She told me, voice low and tired, I thought I was doing fine. I get paid, I pay the bills, why does it feel like I'm sinking? I sat across from her, not with a lecture but with a quiet map. There's a hidden pattern here, not a moral failing, an invisible flow you never measured. I could see the relief before the fear, relief at naming it, fear of what naming might require. We started simple. For 30 days, I said, write down every cent that leaves your wallet or your card. The camera of her life tightened on small scenes, a commuter coffee, a streaming service auto-renew, an impulse by when she told herself she deserved it. As the days ticked by, shock turned into clarity. The leaks were ordinary, automatic subscriptions, convenience fees, lunches bought daily instead of made. The slow creep of interest on a card treated like spare cash. The numbers were not dramatic, but together they were a current strong enough to pull her under. You don't need to give up joy, I told her as we sorted the categories on a battered spreadsheet. You need awareness. We built a simple rule, essentials, future goals, and a discretionary bucket that must stay within a clear limit. Then a tiny habit, reviewing the last 7 purchases each evening, became her compass. I asked her to cancel one recurring charge and redirect that money to a small emergency buffer. She balked, then smiled when the first transfer posted, and she didn't miss it. There were practical exchanges, her admitting she'd ignored the minimum payments, me showing how interest transformed convenience into a debt trap, her triumph when she paid down a single card by reallocating 2 weekly lattes. Her posture shifted, less shame, more strategy. The scene closes on Maria at dawn, pen poised over a new budget, sunlight on the countertop, and a kind of possibility in her chest. If this resonates, tap like and tell me, what's your biggest financial pain right now? Comment below, let's find your path. In the next segment, I'll show the exact tiny system Maria used to turn those first small wins into lasting momentum. The kitchen light cuts through the late-night quiet as Maria spreads statements and receipts like a small, private crime scene. Her hands tremble a little when she folds a credit card bill. She thought doing fine meant sleeping through the month without worry. Instead, she finds a pattern, a string of little approvals on her phone, subscriptions she barely remembers, coffee that became routine, dinners ordered when she was tired. How did I not see this? She asks the empty room. Her voice is soft but steady, the kind of question that finally opens a door. At that moment, a calm, steady voice, like the one she wishes she'd had sooner, steps in. Start by simply watching. Track every dollar for 7 days. No judgment, only truth. So Maria begins. We follow her through the week. The morning she writes down the bus fare and the snack. The exhausted Tuesday when an app purchase slips through while she scrolls. The Saturday subscription charge she forgot to cancel. Small revelations accumulate into a map of invisible leaks. In one scene, she confronts the absurdity of paying for 2 streaming services she never uses. In another, she laughs, rueful, at how often "I deserve this" undoes her best intentions. She brings the list to the table and shares it with Carlos. I didn't realize how many tiny choices add up, he says. They make their first pact. Be curious, not ashamed. The Mentor's Counsel is practical and kind. Sort expenses into 3 columns. Essentials, choices that bring real value, and leaks that just fade into habit. Automate a tiny fraction of each paycheck into a prosperity account. Give new purchases a 48-hour pause. Cancel or renegotiate what you don't use. These are not austerity measures. They are clarity tools that rewire behavior. Maria implements the 48-hour pause and is surprised at how many items evaporate from her cart. She sets up an automatic transfer of 5% from each paycheck and feels a small, stubborn pride the first time the balance rises. By the end of the week, the fear that used to sit like a stone has shifted into something workable, gratitude edged with determination. If this scene resonates, give it a like and tell me below, what's your biggest financial pain right now? Subscribe gently to stay with Maria as she takes the next, tougher step, confronting debt and rebuilding power with consistent, courageous choices. The lamp on Maria's kitchen table throws a warm circle over a mess of receipts, a glowing laptop, and that one credit card bill she's avoided all month. She rubs her temples, breath shallow, and the room feels both familiar and foreign. This is the life she built, yet something quietly unravels it every month. I sit beside her, not as judge, but as steady guide, and ask the question that begins to change everything. What if the problem isn't income or willpower, but a lack of clear sight? She looks up, tired eyes softening with curiosity. We begin small. For 2 weeks, I tell her, write down every cent you spend. Don't argue with it. Record it. The camera follows her pen scratching groceries, a coffee on a rainy morning, a monthly streaming charge that surprised her, the daily taxis she thought were harmless. As the days stack, patterns emerge like footprints in fresh snow, subscriptions forgotten, impulse orders during lonely evenings, fees that feel invisible until totaled. Maria's face moves through denial, embarrassment, then something steadier, relief. Naming the leak already feels like plugging it. One night, over the hum of the fridge, we sort expenses not by guilt, but by value. What feeds your life? I ask. What drains it? She places family dinners, health, and a weekly walk into the keep pile and tucks habitual online shopping and unused apps into repair. We create rules, a waiting period before non-essential buys, a simple weekly check-in, and an automatic transfer, small, predictable, to an emergency fund. Think of it like planting seeds, I say. You water them little by little. She tries the rules. The first week, she saves enough to cover an unexpected doctor's copay, and the weight in her shoulders lifts more than any sum could explain. Habit replaces hustle. The roller coaster flattens to a steady road. Maria learns that prosperity isn't a sudden windfall, but the quiet arithmetic of repeated, aligned choices. If this touches you, tap like. Tell me this resonates. What's the one recurring expense that surprises you the most? Share below, and if you want, stay with me. Next, we'll build a simple 30-day roadmap to stop leaks and start real momentum. That night, Maria sat at her kitchen table under the warm pool of a single lamp, the The apartment quiet except for the distant hum of the city. She spread out bank statements like a map of a country she thought she knew. The minter's voice, calm and steady, felt almost beside her. Start by naming what's really happening. Not what you tell yourself, what the numbers show. She read aloud, testing the truth. Groceries higher than I thought. Subscriptions I forgot. Last month's card balance. The sound of paper felt like pins dropping into place. They worked through it together. No judgment. Only a steady, practical curiosity. Track 3 things for 2 weeks, the mentor suggested. Every purchase under the sun, every impulse that came with a feeling, and every bill that arrived this month. Give each one a reason. Maria hesitated, then scribbled, coffee for stress, shoes for celebration, electricity for hot showers. The ritual of naming turned surprises into patterns. Late-night orders after hard days, subscription services that stitched themselves into habit, and a creeping tolerance for, I'll pay it off next month. In the glow of that lamp, she tried small experiments the mentor outlined. She shifted one recurring payment to a separate sinking fund, scheduled an automatic transfer on payday to a savings account she couldn't touch, and set a cooling-off rule, 48 hours before any non-essential purchase over $30. The first week felt restrictive. By the third week, she noticed the quiet reward, fewer frantic swipes, a calmer inbox, and a credit card bill that no longer elicited heart racing. There were setbacks. A weekend sale tempted her, an old habit tugged. She called her sister, admitted the fear of missing out, and in that confession found accountability. You're not giving up joy, the mentor reminded her. You're choosing what joy actually costs you. That reframing let Maria buy intentionally instead of by impulse. Small wins stacked. One paid-off balance, an extra $150 in savings, a night's sleep without the stomach ache of worry. If this resonates with you, give this video a quick like. Simple, but it helps me know you're here. What's your biggest financial pain right now? Tell me in the comments. And if you want the next step, a daily habit that became Maria's anchor, subscribe and watch what happened next. The kitchen light was low, the clock near midnight. Maria sat at the table surrounded by a small mountain of receipts. Her phone opened to a credit card app that always seemed one swipe away from shame. She rubbed her temples and said, almost to herself, I thought I was doing fine. I leaned forward, not with judgment, but with a steady question. What are you counting right now, Maria? That question became the hinge of her change. As she read numbers aloud, the pattern showed itself. Little purchases that felt harmless, a subscription forgotten, the slow bleed of convenience fees. The revelation wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and precisely painful. We began simply. First, name every outgoing for 2 weeks. No skipping the small things. Maria laughed at how absurd it felt to write down the coffee she bought, because she was too busy. When she saw the tallies, the laughter turned to a steady, sober determination. So all of this was stealth money, she asked. Exactly, I said. Invisible habits add up until they roar. Then she learned to give purpose to each dollar. Not rules, but clarity, bills, essentials, and a protected slice for emergency buffer. We set a tiny, consistent habit she could keep, an automatic transfer of a modest amount the day after payday, so saving didn't rely on willpower. The first transfers were almost ceremonious, small victories pinging her phone, reminders that she could decide what money did, rather than money deciding her. We built a weekly ritual, too. 10 minutes on Sunday to review the week, celebrate one win, fix one leak. The ritual taught her to be compassionate with slip-ups and relentless with patterns. Slowly, the credit card statements stopped feeling like ambushes. They became feedback. Maria's shoulders unclenched. She began to sleep again. This development isn't about austerity. It's about discovering the invisible currents and steering. If this resonates, give this video a like. Tiny signals help me create more of these guides. Tell me in the comments, what's your biggest financial pain right now? If you want simple, steady steps like Maria's, stay with me and subscribe. The next part shows her first month of small actions and the surprising wins that followed. The morning light finds Maria at her kitchen table again, but this time the scene is quieter, not frantic. A mug steams beside her phone, the credit card app open, the latest statement like a small confession. She breathes, remembers the mentor's simple question, what do you actually want from money? Not the clothes, not the dinners out, but the life that makes those choices comfortable, not terrifying. She taps the Notes app and writes 3 honest numbers: income, fixed costs, and what's left. The act of naming feels like turning on a lamp in a dark room. You don't need dramatic cuts, her mentor told her the night before, in the dim light of a living room where curtains kept the outside world distant. You need clarity, small experiments, and permission to adjust. Maria nods as if the words were a map. Her first experiment is gentle. She tracks every expense for 7 days, not to shame herself, but to discover the invisible leaks. The subscription she forgot, the daily takeaway coffee, the impulse checkout at the grocery store. Each discovery is a soft defeat, then a tiny victory. She cancels a subscription that never brought joy, moves one monthly bill to a day that better aligns with paychecks, and sets up an automatic transfer of $50 to a savings account the day after payday. There are setbacks. A car repair bill arrives like a cold wave, and she feels old anxieties bubble up. She calls her mentor, who listens and says, "Adjust the plan, don't abandon it." Maria pauses before reacting, opens her calendar, and schedules a weekend garage sale, both practical and symbolic, selling old things to buy back peace. She holds conversations with her partner, once tense and now collaborative, turning money talk into planning talk. At dinner, they laugh over a simple menu that costs less but tastes like shared purpose. Little habits compound. A weekly 10-minute money check replaces dread. A jar labeled Peace collects coins that become a small emergency cushion. Over time, the balances on her cards drop. The monthly cycle loses its grip. The camera lingers on Maria's face as she discovers the surprising emotion beneath the numbers: confident calm. If this part of Maria's journey resonates, give the video a quick like. Small actions matter. What's your biggest financial pain right now? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to see how these steady choices become lasting freedom, subscribe and stay with us for the next part, where Maria faces the final test and the true payoff appears. The kitchen light spills across Maria's table as she closes the laptop, fingers still warm from the calculator app. A year ago, she would have pushed the stack of envelopes away, told herself she'd figure it out later. Tonight she breathes, because the numbers are no longer a stranger. She remembers the night she sat on that same chair, the mentor's voice calm in her ear. You weren't reckless. You were unconscious. Spend with awareness, and the small things stop nibbling away at your future. Maria had scoffed then. Now she smiles. Flashbacks fold into the present. The credit card alert that made her heart jump. The surprise maintenance bill that used to feel like a trap. The first tiny buffer she built. A simple habit of moving $50 on payday into a breathing room account. It's not sexy, she told her sister, but it works. The sister hugged her, and Maria felt something she hadn't in years: steady ground. We watch her ritual unfold like a small, sacred practice. Every Friday, she lights a candle, opens the spreadsheet, and asks 3 questions. What's coming? What's essential? What can wait? She labels expenses, wires auto payments to priorities, and gives discretionary spending a place so it doesn't invade everything else. Months of these quiet acts compound. A forgotten impulse purchase loses its power. A months-long plan becomes a weekend decision. Small victories stack into momentum. There are setbacks: an appliance dies, a tax notice arrives, but the difference now is clarity. She calls the service line calmly, negotiates a payment plan with confidence, and taps a budget line she created exactly for this kind of surprise. When her son asks about college savings, she answers without the old catch in her voice. We'll build it, she says, and means it. If this resonated, give it a quick like. It helps others find this path. Tell me in the comments, what's your biggest financial pain right now? Share one moment that keeps you up at night, and I'll help you map the first step. If you want more short, practical steps like Maria's, easy habits and clear rituals, subscribe and I'll walk beside you in the next video.